This is a production of Cornell University.
So today we'll sort of have three portions. The first portion, I will focus on why garden-based learning is so important, followed by Roger's portion where he'll talk a little bit about the Cooperative Extension Summer Intern Program. And then Megan will sort of wrap things up with her experience from her internship this summer in Schuyler County. And then we'll have some time for questions. So at this time, I'd really like to know who is in attendance. So if you could please take a moment to sort of share who you are and what your focus is. If you could type that into the chat box, it would be wonderful. Great, thank you, Paulina. She's interested in starting a gardening program in Lewis County. Thank you so much, that's great. So Paulina is just starting out, and it's very exciting. It's a very exciting stage to be in. Who else is out there?
Jen.
Jen Clancy, 4-H Garden Club leader. Awesome, thanks Jen. I'd like to have just a few more so we can see who is with us. Looks like we have April, a nutrition educator in Jefferson County, farm to school coordinator. Wonderful. Looks like we have a good diverse group today. Some people starting out and some people who have been in the field for some time, have some experience under their belts. Some people focused on nutrition, others on horticulture. That's great. Thank you. It's great to know who is in attendance. So we can talk a little bit about why gardening kind of goes hand in hand with Cooperative Extension. So Cooperative Extension's mission is to enable people to improve their lives and communities through partnerships. And our Cornell Garden-Based Learning mission is to provide educators with inspiring, research-based gardening resources and professional development to support engaging, empowering, and relevant learning experiences for children, youth, adults, and communities. We do follow the 4-H mission in empowering youth to reach their full potential, working and learning in partnership with caring adults. So you can see that these missions really go hand in hand, and we really lean on each other. It's a great partnership. So in my portion, this is Fiona speaking, I will really like to lay down some sort of research-based findings on why garden-based learning is so important. So before I start, I'd like to sort of see, why do you think this work is important? If you could just take a moment to share why you believe garden-based learning is meaningful in your work or your personal life. If you could type that into the chat box, it would be great. Awesome, thank you, Colleen. People learn more when doing hands-on work and are more willing to come to learn, to appreciate our environment. Hopefully we conserve it. So true. Megan, anytime people can get out into nature and get hands-on experience, they appreciate more. Now they're coming in fast. Connecting people back to their food source, from Paulina, thank you. Jen says it encourages healthy eating and teaches where food comes from. These are all wonderful points. April said kids learn best by doing. Non-traditional learners can grasp concepts that may struggle with from a textbook. You can teach anything through growing and preparing food. I agree, April. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. So really our hope for this future generation is that they respect and care for the natural world. I think we can all agree upon that. But the reality is that there is an extreme disconnect with nature in this future generation. Children are increasingly disconnected from nature due to overstructured schedules, loss of green space, parental fear, and the prevalence of electronics. And if children are losing their connection with nature, who will care enough about wildlife and open spaces to advocate in 10 or 20 years? If children don't have direct, intimate experiences with nature, they will not care if it goes away. They need good times in the outdoors to realize how wonderful it is, to dig in the mud, to eat fresh berries, to appreciate the hard work of bees. This bonding time with nature should start early and continue through life. What we're experiencing is nature deficit disorder, sort of coined by Richard Louv. It's real and it's happening. I actually found this yesterday from the Big Book of Nature Activities, a year-round guide to outdoor living. And it just sort of states some really interesting figures for us to look at. So 2,500 is the number of advertising messages a child encounters in one day. That is crazy. 2,738 is the number of hours the average North American child sits in front of a glowing screen per year. Wow. 183 is the number of hours a child spends outdoors in unstructured play per year. Wish that figure was swapped with the one above it. And 300 is the percentage that obesity has increased over the past 20 years for children aged 6 to 11. That's just astonishing. 300 is also the number of corporate logos the average child can identify. But only 10 is the number of native plants and animals that the average child can identify. And I feel like these figures, aren't just appropriate and sort of relevant to children, but also our society as a whole. So our job is to really bring that connection back to nature. So our hope is our children will be physically active and healthy. This little girl is so cute on her Barbie bike. But the reality is something much different. Half of American kids do not meet the physical activity guidelines. They get 46 hours of video games or television play a day. That means there's less time for them to be outside, exploring, playing, getting muddy and dirty, climbing trees and falling out of them. All those really important sort of pieces to childhood. I do feel that childhood is a critical time to establish healthy lifestyle habits. Another hope is that our children will be nutritionally healthy and food secure, which means they can access and consume safe, affordable, culturally appropriate, nutrient-filled foods. The reality is that they're nutritionally deficient. Factors include poor access, lack of affordability, convenience, and habits. Many youth live in food deserts and have limited access to healthful foods. Approximately 18% of Americans aged 2 to 9 years are obese. And obesity is the number one health concern among parents in the United States. That tops drugs and smoking. That's crazy. Our hope is that our children will have the education that they need to feel empowered, to establish leadership and confidence. This is such an important foundational time to establish these things and to try new things and to ask questions. But the actual is kind of fallen into a fit or fail school system. Education has become streamlined. Teaching has become to hit the standards and the standardized tests. It's not for the individual. And really, memorization has taken over mastery. There's less time for critical thinking, creativity, and imagination. Education has become rigid and strict. And I can definitely echo this portion where I felt like, when I was in school, it was more about jumping through hoops and memorizing things for an A rather than really using my critical thinking skills. So to fuel the future of kids, we have to think about their entire lifestyle. I hope that wasn't too much doom and gloom for you, but it's really important to share that this information is critical at this point in time in our society. And now, to the bad stuff. That gardens are a wonderful gateway to learning and discovery for the whole child. Look at that garden. I wish I was there right now. It's so beautiful. So let's talk about some of the positive effects of gardening. So children who garden are more comfortable with the outdoors, have increased awareness and appreciation for the natural world, have ownership, responsibility. They become environmental stewards. They establish that important sense of wonder and desire to ask questions. You know, there have been studies that show that the love of gardening is not so much about gardening, but about making decisions. Having the freedom to make your own decisions is incredibly powerful, and this can happen in the garden. I love this John Burroughs quote, that knowledge without love will not stick, but if love comes first, then knowledge is sure to follow. We need to connect kids back to that love of nature. Children who garden also have improved nutrition and health awareness. Healthy eating can help prevent or delay chronic conditions. And studies have shown that kids who plant it eat it, or at least try it. These healthy food choices start during childhood and will continue through adulthood. Early exposure is key. There have also been studies that children who garden have higher learning achievements. They have higher test scores, especially in science and math. They also discover unique personal strengths and feel more I can and I belong. They learn to make decisions and problem solve. They gain greater self-esteem. They learn interpersonal skills, teamwork, and are more likely to build stronger relationships with others. And they're more engaged in their communities, which I think is really important and wonderful. Gardening in schools. It increases achievement scores, increases parental involvement and community involvement, really supplements that hands-on learning that might not already be in the school system, enhances storytelling, written expression, reading and comprehension, and spelling. Just overall, it's wonderful. And gardening might provide, that type of learning that's more hands-on and experiential. So there really is something for everyone. And the benefits of gardening aren't just for youth, they're for all ages. It enhances mental health, helps reduce stress, lowers your blood pressure, relieves muscle tension, and helps combat obesity. I know that when I've had a hard day at work or somewhere else, that when I get home, once I start weeding and pruning and caring for my plants, I feel a whole lot better. It's just therapeutic. Here's a quote from a child that I think just about sums everything up. Gardening makes me happy. It makes me proud of me. Gardening makes me feel healthy. I can garden with family and friends. I love it. So as you can see, in our garden, we are growing way more than plants. This work is important. This work is real. We are cultivating passion and empowerment with the next generation. We are empowering both youth and adults to become environmental stewards and to care for their natural world. We are inspiring youth and adults to make healthier choices and lead healthier lives. All right. Well, I hope that sort of gave you a good foundation of why garden-based learning is so powerful and especially critical at this moment of time. Now I'd like to turn it over to Roger.
All right, thank you, Fiona. Let's transfer over to here to make sure I can work these slides for you all. And good morning, thank you for being here today. My perspective here is a little bit from a Cooperative Extension educator and how this is our second year with College of Ag and Life Sciences intern. So we've gone through the program now. I think we applied 4 years and we've won an intern for 2 years. So I wanted to share, and I apologize, my first slides are going to be a little bit on the boring, wordy side, but it's how we wrote for our intern, because I thought it was more important for me to share with you the wording that we use, because I believe that's important on how you're developing your program to make it fit, of course, for yourself, but also how that it works for Cornell to be able to provide one of these interns, which has just been a blessing. Having Megan this year and Brittany last year, if anybody sat through Brittany's presentation last year, these are both great youth and really benefited our program beyond what I can put on these slides. So let me go to my first slide here, and I apologize again, it's going to be a little wordy, but maybe you can use this when you're writing. So the project summary and intended outcomes that we identified were: the interest in gardening is growing throughout New York State, and CCE continues to explore the most innovative avenues for which to educate and inspire citizens. Demonstration gardens have proven to be an important arena for a number of significant learning opportunities. Schuyler CCE has identified the need for a continued strengthened approach to a local demonstration garden as a way to help hundreds of local residents learn more about horticulture and area educators learn from our success. So it's also about sharing, and everything. So.
Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. Thank you, Fiona. So in the pictures, I'll just explain a little bit on some of our different things there before I go on to reading this slide. So there's just some musk strawberries that we have from a specialty collector that we got some strawberries donated, and that's our figs growing in our garden, Chicago Hardy. So we do some weird things, and we do a lot of common things in the Cornell vegetable trials, things like that. So we try to mix a lot of different things in for the intern experience. So part 2 of the project summary and intended outcomes here on this slide. This garden-based learning intern will help Schuyler CCE build upon the success of last summer's internship to further develop, utilize, and maximize the educational benefits of the attractive, spacious teaching garden, which lies adjacent to the CCE office complex and was established 5 years ago as an outdoor classroom. The initial progress of our garden was a grant, a Department of Health grant from our local community. We adopted the grant to fit the proposal for our garden and got us established, which I'll show you some slides here later. So we're trying to keep this teaching garden idea. We call it teaching garden. AARC, when they come to visit, they call it the learning garden because of what they get out of working with us and the community partnerships that we've developed. So next. I wanted to spoil us and show us a little bit of winter here because I know we're so excited about getting through summer. So I think this year this is going to be the best time in my garden is to feel that nice snow out there. So continuing on the summary and intended outcomes here. The summer intern will begin with an overview of important initiatives such as sustainability, diversity, and inclusion, as well as practical guidance related to stakeholder needs assessment and successful program development processes. Help develop and deliver a season-long curriculum with input from the leadership. Share the results of the approach through diverse documentation, which will include a web-based success story to be distributed through CCE News and the Cornell Garden-Based Learning blog. And potentially host a regional workshop to share with other CC educators our learnings from the trajectory of a 2-year internship experience with a growing audience base. So this is that part there where the regional workshop to share with you other educators what we have learned, and that's my goal here today, and we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end because we want you to take this. We feel really blessed that we were awarded an intern 2 years in a row, and we've made so many strides with our garden due to that intern of working with audiences that in the past I was not a full-time horticulture educator, so how we could pull this off with just a part-time and now luckily this year that I'm back full-time has worked to our benefit. So next. Okay, the student's role. Too far. Okay, so the brief description of the student intern's role and responsibilities. So under the supervision of the collaborators listed above, that would have been in our writing for our intern. We will participate in a preparation session, which I think Fiona and Marcia worked with Megan to get her started and give her a little background about garden-based learning. Develop and deliver targeted educational programs for both youth and adult audiences. We work with Head Start is in our building. AARC has a group home nearby. They've come out twice a week, would like to come out 3 times a week. WIC is in our building on Fridays. PINS is Youth at Risk program in our building, and we worked with those, which was a lot of boys that one evening. They were a lot of fun. And 4-H as a teaching garden with guidance and intentionally adapting Cornell garden-based learning curricula. Create, enhance, and lead activities which support the maintenance of the garden. Observe how volunteers are developed, supervised, and rewarded, and work with educators to implement 2 volunteer trainings and gain experiences. Monitor for pests, collect data in variety trials. We're always getting plants donated. The most recent ones I can think of were the Rutgers cranberry trials that we did, but we did straw bale trials, variety trials. So we're always getting some things from Cornell, strawberries, and so on like that. And lastly, they report and share the results regionally and statewide to educate and inspire others. Megan's part of this is going to be the most beneficial to all of you, of all the projects, hopefully, that we've given her successfully through this year. What qualifications were needed? So in writing for the intern, we had to identify those. So the candidate will need excellent written and oral communication skills, a genuine desire and documented interest in working with people is necessary. She or he should be attentive to detail and should possess a general knowledge of and enthusiasm for gardening and home food production. And lastly, a desire to work with a variety of audiences and an interest in the ability to perform physical work in outdoor conditions. All these are really crucial, and I'm just going to step back through these one more time. Written and oral skills for Megan has been her blog and her ability to write articles for us that have just been exceptional. Working with people, you're working with garden volunteers one minute, you're working with an audience of maybe youth at risk the next moment. So she was put in various programs that she'll talk more on. An enthusiasm for gardening. I think whenever I interviewed Megan, she had worked for a CSA last year, and had really shown, even though Megan, she'll tell you more of it, she's from a animal science background, really had a love of plants along with that, and that was necessary for this to work out really well. And that last one there, working with a variety of audiences and interests to perform physical work in outdoor conditions. This year, working outside in the garden, if you didn't like a little bit of heat, it would not have worked at all. so Megan has this keen ability to be able to work in the heat more than probably I was even able to. So it was extraordinary to find a youth that really tolerated. All right, so next, benefits and skills that we could hopefully then provide our intern. So we said to increase knowledge of CCE's successful program development process. We bring that to the table. Basic gardening and local food production experience, volunteer development, written and oral expression. Intern will gain significant experience in facilitating learning experiences both all adult and youth audiences in an outdoor classroom environment through the co-leadership of numerous classes and activities. So we just try to develop a listing of what we're giving back. We take a lot from an intern, probably in any of the programs, but what are we giving them back that they can take with them beyond her experience here? And for Megan, I think I signed her farewell card with, if you grow others, you grow yourself. And so that sort of follows with Fiona's little tagline there, that we do more than just grow plants. The audiences that we reach really have this need to learn gardening, and it's so neat to see an intern work with those audiences, and hopefully we provided that opportunity. So here is my welcome slide before I go for a little bit about our garden on there. But here's a little where I wanted to get you to chat a little bit, is what type of gardens do you want to work with or are already working with back home? Ideas would be, do you have a teaching garden or learning garden like ours? Are you more working in a community garden, a school garden, a food plot? I know some of you answered a little bit with Fiona, but just jot me down, like, what audiences or what type of garden are you planning back home or already have that you're utilizing? So I'll give you a minute here before I move on. Okay, we work with youth to elderly in workshops, but do not have a designated area or garden. This is our next wish to have in our program. Thank you, Colleen. Katie, I'm hoping to get some demonstration gardens going in Orleans County. We started with 2 small raised beds, one dedicated to herbs and the other to pollinator native plants. Thank you, Katie. We'll keep them rolling in, everybody. I'm going to move on a little bit to the garden here. Here's our little welcome board. This is the center of a teaching platform that we have, that we developed in our garden with. You can see some benches sort of there. And there's 8 poles that are for grapes. Whoops, I got April. We're hoping to help more local schools implement gardens and garden education in addition to local procurement. Thank you, April. So this little teaching platform, I'll have a little bit better picture of. So as I said, a couple years ago, Department of Health in Schuyler County had this grant. Why you have connections in your community is they contacted us that nobody had applied for this grant. That's like not heard of anymore. There's probably people fighting over grants. So they said, Roger, we know you're new, but we've heard you want to establish a garden. This was a big grass plot out along the road. They said, we can help you do that. If you write for this grant, you are pretty much the only person so far. So I wrote for this grant, and this was not to be taken lightly. This was $7,500, I think, to start us. We used it for infrastructure. We built this teaching platform, and you'll see an arbor that we put over top of some picnic tables that were out in the middle of nowhere. Nobody would come out and sit because the 3 picnic tables were in the baking sun. And we also put a little arbor for our entrance, and you'll see this packed gravel that's around here. This is all wheelchair accessible. And also the raised beds were made for wheelchair height. We did all that with the initial, I would say 95% of the plants were all, I wrote, different companies, and they were all more than willing to donate plants. So we have paid for very little of the plants. And I feel blessed at this point. I have a little nursery at home that I've been able to donate some plants this year to help the garden along because it's really my passion. So I donated some fruiting plants this year. So we just keep adding as we go. So here is, I think, the first couple weeks after it was developed with the raised planters, the teaching platform in the middle, which is sort of an Old English style amphitheater. The big arbor down at the end, we beefed up because we put hardy kiwi on top of those. And off to the right of the picture, you can't see, would have been our wheelchair entrance off of the main walkway coming in, because we wanted to make sure this garden was developed for all folks to be able to participate in our programs. This was probably now about 2 years back. Megan was laughing at me. She said, if you took this picture today, you couldn't see through any of this because that big quince in the foreground and those elderberries have probably doubled that size. The grapevines have taken over that whole arbor, so you feel like you're in an enclosure now that they have grown. So the garden has really taken off. And this is all just volunteer, because like I said, I was only part-time as of last year. So volunteers, our first 3 master gardeners came out of Tompkins County last year, so we didn't even have a master gardener program. So yeah, Megan loves this picture. I caught her right when the bug bit her. But so this is some of our master gardeners, our garden volunteers, our nutrition staff, and Megan working on a ladybug adoption night where we, Department of Entomology was donating, or not donating, but had bred the 9-spotted ladybugs, and we had a adopt them and release them in our garden night. So, this is a good diversity because it is 4 different groups together working in the garden at one time. This is something, and like I said, I won't belabor these because Megan's going to show you, this is a lot of her work. This is her ladybug adoption flyer. We make the interns, we teach them, and then we make them do everything that we would do. Create flyers, book rooms, help with the speakers, with the ladybugs. She went along, we picked them up at Cornell. It was a cool experience of videotaping the ladybug larvae. So this was just one of her flyers that she created. She'll talk more about that later. She did this trifold, which was just a real creative, all about ladybugs for kids. We gave that out the night that the folks came in and adopted, and I think we had as many adults as kids adopt ladybugs that night. It was really just a cool educational event in the garden. Okay, community groups. We talked about ARC. This is the ARC group that was out in the garden. PIN's diversion is youth at risk. We all know WIC, Head Start programs that are building, Office for the Aging's in our building. Department of Social Services has a work crew that we have worked with, and they have expressed like how great it is to learn gardening skills when they're already teaching their participants work-related skills. So they really appreciate coming out to our garden. And this is just a little history behind this slide, is the folks from ARC had gone to a rain barrel building workshop somewhere else, not in our garden. They loved our garden so much, you'll see the water is light there, they donated their barrel to our garden. So it's really incredible that they thought about us. And we love working with them, and Megan will talk more about that. Of course, on our previous slide, Megan has worked on her internship blog. It is amazing. She'll talk more about it there. Please go on there. I'm not nearly that creative of putting videos into my blogs. I'm lucky that I could just type a simple letter to you guys. So these youth bring other skills that I feel bad that I don't know better. Our plant signage is our claim to fame in our garden. Megan was thrown right into any new varieties. You'll see some of these were from my farm, donated. We try to get the newest plant material that we see that is available that folks want to learn. And these are some bush cherries from the University of New Hampshire, the METER program, I believe. So when we bring them in, it automatically gets a sign put on it because the garden is 24/7 open. Folks come there to learn. They're welcome to taste test. It is just, of course, the deer visit as much as people do. We're working on that. But so the signage is the most important thing. So Megan got to do a lot of signs, a lot of research on the varieties. It's a lot of work researching where they came from, giving credit, designing the signs, so on. Along with our signage is our nutrition. I believe, and Megan will probably talk more about it, that there's 12 sort of like those brochure holders that you would get for an open house at a home that's for sale. They're clear with a flip-top lid. We have them spaced all around our garden, and we try to put them either with timely planting information or here is some of our nutrition education. One slide you saw our nutrition educator, Lisa, is just part-time, and she's at camp during the summer. We have no other nutrition staff, so without an intern, I would not be able to look up recipes and get them out to the garden. I just would not have time for that. So she was able to get timely recipes out there when crops were coming ready. Obviously here, kale and rhubarb were in season in the garden. So she kept up with that, and we did some monitoring, and Megan will talk more about like how many did we put out there, how many were taken, things like that. We did some record keeping also. This is Master Gardener program is back after a long hiatus in Schuyler County, so she was tasked to get a master gardener, we want you kind of deal. We went through ideas of like Uncle Sam, or we had a Batman theme for a while, like be a superhero, be a master gardener in Schuyler County. So we worked long and hard on developing, because our master gardeners go out to local farmers markets and stuff, on like how do we find past, present, and future master gardeners to our program. So we developed this on there, on developing a master gardener program. Summer rec, this is Megan, she'll talk more about this. She went out with our youth educator, Paula, so this was a 4-H event, up to a summer recreation program in Odessa, New York, and worked with youth of many ages. And like I said, I'm not going to steal Megan's thunder, but just wanted to share that we do outside events, get our intern out of the garden so she's not out there sweating every day. How can we get her out and utilize her? And I heard she did a wonderful turtle project that she'll talk to you about more. Little publisher, we've worked hard on this. I started this, but we keep up with this little drawing. Every time we put new plants in, they get updated on here. And when we had some permaculture tour go through last year, they were really impressed that a garden map existed. They go to a lot of neat gardens, but nobody really puts where the plants are for you to find them. You just sort of randomly come across them. So the garden map was really a great thing for folks who visited us. So I think, Megan, it's your turn. So thank you, everybody. And I'll take questions at the end.
Great. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. As Roger and Fiona said, my name's Megan. I was the Schuyler County summer intern, and I'm just here to talk about my experiences with the program, what my big takeaways are, and why other extension programs, like what some of you guys work for, might consider wanting an intern. Going into this job, I really didn't know what to expect. My major is animal science, as Roger said, so I had pretty limited experience with horticulture. But I worked on a farm the previous summer, so I was interested to see what the extension office had in store for me. Initially, my job just entailed fixing up the garden, weeding, mulching, making new signs, and facilitating the mini bi-weekly workshops with AARC that Roger mentioned before, and any other community groups, and helping out with various projects around the office. But it ended up being so much more than that, and I'll break it down into a few categories because it ended up extending way beyond the initial scope. So first, the garden. I mulched the entire plot. I took out a ton of weeds, and this is just kind of the general labor of it. It all took a lot longer than I thought, mulching it and just taking down all the old signs, putting up new signs. I took like a lot of before and after pictures so you can kind of see the progress that there was throughout the summer. I planted a ton of new seeds. We acquired a big donation about halfway through the summer that had tons of like tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, and cantaloupe plants. As Roger said, he donated several of his own plants, including a goji berry bush, a couple new blueberry varieties, and 3 bush cherries that I planted with members of AARC. Updated all the garden signs, made new ones, and put together some healthy garden relevant recipes that we put in the garden flyer holders for passerbys to take. Oh, sorry, I'll slow down. And I'm so happy with how the garden looks now. Obviously, I could continue to work on it forever because there's always something to do. But I think it's taught me most of what it can for the meantime, which is invaluable enough. I'll go back to this. Secondly, working with community groups each Tuesday and Thursday. Each Tuesday and Thursday, 1 to 3 members of AARC would come, and their caretaker and I would facilitate a garden activity with them. And sometimes it would be something simple, like we just plant seeds, or we'd water, or we'd weed. And then sometimes I would prepare a more intensive activity beforehand. Like we made turtle sprouts, which is the picture right in the middle. And it's sort of like a very easy at-home chia pet. And I did that with the summer rec program, and I did it with AARC. And I think both of them
really liked the activity and benefited from it. We extended the opportunity to work with WIC and PINS diversion, but never heard back from WIC. We had one evening where we worked with PINS diversion, about a group of maybe 15 boys, and they were great. They were really into the garden, and even though we were just mulching, we weren't doing anything necessarily exciting. I think they really enjoyed it. And then finally, I worked alongside Paula, the picture to the far right, doing the summer rec program where her and I would put together hour-long activities for the Odessa Central School. That took place each Tuesday for a month, and the activities were all garden-based, and the kids ranged from kindergartners to sixth graders. And the activities would get like a little harder with each age group, but I'll discuss more of that in a moment. And then finally, working on stuff in the office, made a ton of signs all for the garden. A lot of them was just updating older signs, and then sometimes I made new signs for newer plants that we had. I had a bigger hand in like advertising and marketing than I expected. So like the ladybug adoption, for instance, put together several flyers, the trifold poster that you see in this slide, as well as like a brochure. And along the way, learned a ton about ladybugs. I could talk your ear off about ladybugs for an hour. Not that anyone wants that. But this was just an example of duties that I ended up having that I didn't necessarily expect, but I'm happy that I was able to contribute. So now I'll talk about the takeaways. So I'm going to kind of go back. I realized the power a garden can have. It provides an affordable way to grow fresh produce, and I discovered just an absolute passion for it. I love horticulture now, and I'm considering pursuing that further. But as you can see, the garden really evolved over time. It has all its signs, which like mark different areas of the garden now. Fully mulched and weeded. The Head Start garden looks absolutely amazing, although that's a good part. Karen, one of our master gardeners, planted a cayenne pepper bed, 2 of those from the donation that I received from a woman who works for AARC. Roger and I made these netted raised beds so that the deer couldn't get to them. Deer were the absolute bane of our existence this entire summer. They ate everything, but this like netted bed it's producing tons of tomatoes because the deer weren't able to get to it. As you can see, everything just it like looks a lot more put together, but my pride and joy from the summer for sure. Okay. So the big takeaways. A garden is so much more than just plants. And I kind of thought this was cheesy going into this, but like it's absolutely true. A garden is helpful in so many different ways that you wouldn't even expect. Obviously, it produces a lot of food. It provides an affordable way to grow your own fresh produce, which is really a valuable tool, especially for like lower income families who sometimes can't afford all the fresh produce that they need. For the final installment of the summer rec program, we made garden salsa, where we used ingredients either found in the garden or we had to supplement some from a grocery store because we didn't have enough for the entire group of kids. But getting to like see the kids like actually working with like the tomatoes and onions and peppers that we had grown ourselves was exciting because it's like they can do that too. They can grow it and then they can make a delicious snack out of everything that they harvest from there. It provides a source of education. Working in the garden just personally has taught me so much this summer. I've learned a ton about plant and insect life that I probably never would have gotten as great of detail about if I'd just taken a course. I believe anyone who has a garden, even if it's just for like leisure or pleasure, would inevitably learn so much over time. Luckily, I have Roger to thank for sharing his expansive knowledge about plants with me, which in turn I tried my best to pass on to either the children or the AARC members that I worked with over the summer. Just learning the basics about soil health and how plants grow, what bugs are pests, like, et cetera. Those are things that'll stick with you and be useful, like, your entire life. Just with the kids, we would, of course, do garden-related activities, which were fun, like the turtle sprouts, or we played bug bingo. But I think from each of those activities, there was a takeaway where the kids could remember something, like, oh, this insect is especially bad on this plant. Like, in the future, if they're just out in nature and they see that bug, like, I hope that they'll remember the things that we taught them, even if it's totally small. Like Fiona was saying earlier, gardening is incredibly therapeutic. I've been told several times that members of AARC who came to the garden frequently for the workshops that I did with them really benefited from the experience. And I could even see it week to week. Like, a few of the members who continually came back throughout the summer would come and they'd be so excited to see me. They'd like come out of the car and be like, what are we doing today? What have you got planned? And it was really exciting to see like that weekly progression, that they were actually thrilled to keep coming back. And by the end of the summer, some of the members were like so excited that when I told them that I was leaving, they actually got really sad. And I'm sad that I can't continue working with them, just because it was such a beneficial experience. Personally, I would just use the garden as an escape if I had a lot on my mind or wasn't having a good day. And like Fiona said, just an hour or so out in the garden, I would feel infinitely better. As far as self-fulfillment, gardening is work. It's fun and it's relaxing, but it's definitely work. You'll weed and you'll mulch and you'll sweat and you'll get incredibly discouraged when things that you plant die or when a deer eats something that you just like put in the ground. But the gratification that comes with seeing like the first tomato that you planted ripen or the sprouts coming up that you planted, it's unbeatable. And it's really fulfilling. And I tried to point out this progress to especially the AARC members I worked with, because we planted a lot of seeds. So each week they came back, I would take them back to where we planted the seeds and be like, look, these are the seeds we planted and now they're sprouts and they're coming up and one day they'll be flowering. And the fact that they can have even just that small amount of ownership over the garden and its success is a great accomplishment. And finally, gardens can be, and at least in my experience this summer, the perfect platforms for forming connections, both with nature and other people. There's something so essential with connecting with plants and the earth that a lot of people lose nowadays, like Fiona was talking about. You cultivate an appreciation for the earth and how we as people work with it and communicate with it, and that's really invaluable. And I also truly believe that everyone can enjoy a garden, even if they're not someone who particularly likes being outside. Like, everyone can find something about it that they enjoy. And a number of people I've met and befriended in the garden is truly uncountable. Like, just people who walked by the garden or walked through it, I would talk to them for 10, 15 minutes and just see that, like, they really appreciated the beauty of the garden. So whether my role was as a facilitator or teacher, like with AARC or the kids, or just as like a helping hand, like with my coworkers or the master gardeners, I can honestly say I won't forget the people I've connected with this summer, and I hope that they think of the garden as fondly as I do. So to kind of close up, I know we're sort of running out of time here, but why have an intern? For all of you people listening, if you're considering having an intern or applying for an intern in the future, I'd like to just share my own experience so that you can know that it really can make a difference, both to the intern and to your program. An intern can be a new perspective. I was lucky in that Roger gave me a lot of freedom to attend to the garden and plan activities with AARC as I saw fit. And as a result, a lot of new ideas evolved. I created new beds in the garden and signs dividing it into easy to follow sections like the butterfly garden, raspberry patch. But I had minimal prior experience with gardening and working with community groups. So I learned as I went, and hopefully I was able to look at everything from a fresh point of view. Also, an intern can be a helping hand in tons of ways. As I said earlier, I ended up having a lot more duties and helping out with things that I didn't expect. which was great because I helped out Roger, Kathy, Paula, the people I work with, all on a number of different projects while still routinely working in the garden, and as a result got so much accomplished and really gained tons of new skills in like different areas that I didn't expect over the course of the summer. And finally, like having an intern, you could really change a student's life. I was really indecisive about what I wanted coming into this summer, which is, I mean, clearly why I'm an animal science major in an internship pretty unrelated to animals. But working with the incredible people in the extension office and connecting with so many community members, I began to get a better idea of what I love to do. Of course, I'm still unsure about a lot, but just this summer has convinced me to at least pursue a minor in horticulture because I wouldn't trade the experiences I had for anything. And while the summer was hard, I don't regret a single part of it, and I loved it. So thank you to everyone I worked with, to Roger, Fiona, and I think now we're going to ask some questions, try to engage you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much, Roger.
And I wanted to just chime in. She didn't highlight that one picture, but those ladybug cupcakes were amazing. They were like the highlight of ladybug adoption night. So our nutrition staff, kudos to them. They wanted to throw that in there.
They were tasty.
They were tasty.
Did they have ladybugs in them?
No,
I wish.
No.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening so patiently for the last few minutes. So now's your time to sort of ask any questions that are on your mind, or yeah, we'd really like this next. We blocked off the next half hour or so, so there's plenty of time to have a lively discussion. Don't be shy. So you can either type your question into the chat box, or I believe you can raise your hand and I can unmute you. All right.
Katie has something? So Katie, I think I can answer that one. How did you protect your signs from the elements out in the garden? They really only, our color isn't stay fast yet. We're trying to figure that out. So the pictures of like the apples and so on do not last too long, but the black ink on a cardstock has lasted us pretty much for a year until we replace them again. But the color fades really fast, so we have not been able to solve that one there yet. So if anybody ever has a good color fast printer ink or something, we're trying to work on that. But the black on the cardstock has lasted fine.
Great. Looks like you have another question from Paulina. Where do you get most of your funding from?
Sort of as stated in the presentation, all the plants were donated. So that is 100% or 95%. We had a little pot of money. I think $300 each year was set aside from Cooperative Extension for the garden in our budget. So we purchased tools and knickknacks and things like that with the $300. But like I said, everything that was built came from the initial Department of Health grant, was all the major construction. We really never did any more construction after that one. I wish we had, but we never finished our one walkway. Let's see, how far back are we on that?
Colleen said, oh, hang on. Do you plan on only having college interns, or do you plan on using high school interns?
We'd like to have additional interns. I know we were really blessed to get 2 years through the CALS program. Probably would be lucky to ever get a third year, because I heard 2 years was pretty incredible. We're always looking for interns. It's hard sometimes because we are out, especially for like Megan. She had to drive out each day from Ithaca, where she lived. Brittany last year lived in Watkins Glen. That was really close. So maybe a high school one or a high school program that actually has some youth. But we could also take a look at Elmira College and some local colleges where some youth might have to do a little bit of intern before they graduate. So we'll have to do a lot of exploring over this winter of some other options.
Awesome. And a follow-up from Colleen said, if funding or interns are not available in the future, how will the garden be sustained or kept alive?
Okay, so Colleen's question there, interns are going to be a question mark. So we know we have 3 master gardeners that completed the program up at Tompkins with Pat. We plan on sending a couple more folks that are interested in the master gardener program, and they've been really reliable in helping with our garden. Debbie, who is one of our master gardeners, actually has to take a bus because she cannot drive. Twice a week, she comes almost all year long. She is really dedicated. So we have passionate people. Also, a lot of our volunteers that aren't master gardeners just love the community engagement in the garden because it is very focal, and they like to just come out there and just help out. And when I put a call out for help, like the weeds are getting a little big, how can we get a weeding party together? They show up. It's just incredible the interest level we have. I don't believe that interns are going to be, I think, like I said before, 2 years was pretty lucky, but maybe we'll develop other ideas. I am also full-time now, so be able to help out, especially when Megan leaves. I'll be doing the AARC tours twice a week and stuff, so she's made a good base for us to keep it running for the rest of the fall, and then we have the winter to regroup and go from there.
Great. Another sign question. Were the signs laminated in-house or sent out to a printing company?
That was actually a project for Megan. She laminated, actually she blew up one of our laminators this year. So,
right.
So we know the amount of laminating we did, but we burned one up. So we do a lot of laminating on those signs. She did everything from developing some brand new ones to printing out the old ones to laminating them, and then we have this whole little system where we have a soil and water department puts in fencing, and they split a bunch of pressure-treated poles when they're pounding. They donate those to us, and we cut them into little angled sign holders that sit out in the garden. I should have did a close-up one for you. So we put a little dab of silicone behind where the staple is going to be. The sign goes on, and then the staple goes through, and then a dab of silicone on the outside of the staple so water doesn't ruin our signs. And then, like I said, we were really pretty good, except for color, making one full season before we have to replace them back out there. And we just consider that part of our budget for the garden, putting the signs out there, because that is our silent salesperson if we were selling something, but it is one of those folks, or one of those projects where we see folks in the garden when I'm leaving at night, sometimes at 9 o'clock, there might be a family out there picking some fresh raspberries and reading the signs. And then the same in the morning, if there's joggers, they'll stop and look at, what's that quince tree? I've never seen something like that. So people always, and we just had Megan's farewell meal out in the garden yesterday, and when we went to come in, I had 3 questions in a row of folks who stopped because somebody was in the garden, and they asked a gardening-related question that they may not have come in our building for, because you come through security, and it's just a little spooky to some folks to have to come through sheriffs and stuff. So when you're out in the garden, you get, like Megan said, you get approached by tons of community members asking what this is, how do I solve this? You know, I have trees dying from the drought, how do I water them properly? So it's that connection when you're out there, it's really good for that.
Awesome, thank you. I have a question for both Roger and Megan, but also for everyone else that's attending. Does everyone have sort of like a top garden-based learning resource or a top activity that they find works really well? It could be anything. Yeah, feel free to share.
I mentioned it a few times, and this is the turtle sprout activity, but it's an activity I pulled from Cornell's garden-based learning website, and it's meant for, I believe, ages like kindergarten to maybe like 5th grade or something, but it kind of has all the essentials of gardening packed into one, and it's fun. Like, kids get to like draw their own turtle, and then you fill just the stocking with some grass seed. With AARC, I believe we did dill instead, but so you just put some sort of like seed in the bottom that's small enough where it'll come up through the pantyhose, and then soil on top and tie it off. And you just water it every other day. It's very simple, and then it starts growing. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to see the kids that I did this activity with a second time, like a week later, because I would have loved to ask them if they like kept up with it, if it actually started sprouting. But I think that's just like a fun activity, really affordable, and like we did it in mass amounts. We had like 30 kids, plus I did several more the next day with AARC, and it was very cheap and fun, and taught them a decent amount about gardening in a short amount of time.
Yeah, I'll chime in with another one along those same lines of being very affordable and very easy and sort of not too material intensive. And this one, you can call them seed bombs or seed balls or seed anything really. So you pretty much just take a large chunk of clay, and each person gets a small piece of it. They flatten it out, and in the middle of sort of the clay patty, you put some soil and some seeds. They can be wildflower seeds. They can be really any type of seeds. I've done it with basil before. And then you smash it all into a ball. And it's just so easy. The kids love the tactile, kind of fun, getting dirty part of it. But they're also taking seeds home with them to plant then or plant at a later date. So that's another really easy one that you can set up. You know, if you didn't know you had a group coming, oh wait, we can always do seed balls because those are really easy to set up and fun.
If we scroll down, we might have somebody after Katie, maybe.
Oh, good point.
Let's see here. So somebody asked about gravel for our pathways. Do you think landscape fabric instead? Do you feel gravel was better? So our walkways have fabric underneath, so that is like part of the answer, and then a little bit chunkier stone, and then a really fine, I think they called it stone dust from our landscaper. And when that packs, it is hard as cement, with just a little loose on top. So wheelchairs, strollers, even walkers go through it really, really well because of how it packs. But it is all three levels in there. So the fabric is below to keep weeds from coming up. I only get a little transitional weeds at the edge that try to come in, but they pull really easy out of that. It's probably a good 2 inches thick of that stone dust. And that was put in from our landscaper. And like I said, if I could ever afford to do the other half of the garden so there's an exit back out on the other end, we would continue with that stone dust because it has worked so well for wheelchairs on there.
And Paulina's question, do you have principal worksheets for that activity? I'm not sure if that is directed towards the turtle sprouts or the seed balls, but I know the turtle sprouts are on the Cornell Garden-Based Learning website. If you go to lessons and then activities, they should be in there. And there are downloadable PDFs. And while you're on there, you'll find a whole lot of other great activities too. So it's definitely worth checking out. And yes, we will be posting the slides. The whole webinar has been recorded. Thankfully, I remembered. It's really easy to forget. Once I am able to download the webinar and sort of transfer it to a different format, I will then upload it to YouTube. So if you have any questions and are able to find it in the next few days, you can always email me. My email address is up there, and Fiona.
I wanted to share, if you ever, some of you probably have the old Project Wet curriculum. In there is the water cycle game. It is a little bit more, because I had to build it and laminate the dice that you roll, but the little beads that the kids get and through the water cycle game, and then they share that bracelet at the end with their friends, and they can see they got 5 of the dark blue in a row because they were stuck in the ocean. It's where the water droplet travels. So sometimes, like, if it's like coming out of an animal as urine, it's only like one time that you're there. But sometimes you maybe get stuck in the cloud or in the ocean multiple times, and you may get 7 beads in a row because you don't leave that station. So they really grasp the understanding of where that water droplet, and oh, that makes sense that it wouldn't be there very long. Versus, yeah, I'd be stuck as a water droplet in the ocean for a long time. And they all talk up their beads to each other at the end and ask, well, what color is that? I would never green, I was never in a plant. My little water droplet never made it there, you know, and something like that. So it's really cool the way they share it afterwards, which is a really win for me, that they understand it enough to share with their friends and talk about, you know, where they were in that cycle. A little more prep work because you got to buy the beads and the make the little dice, but it is a fun water cycle game.
Awesome. Are there any other questions about just maybe general garden-based learning theory or about the internship or anything else that we can help you out with today? Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you to everyone for attending. Thank you to Roger and Meg for their awesome presentations. And I just do want to stick in a quick plug for a webinar that Cornell Garden-Based Learning will be hosting on September 7th. We have some really exciting upcoming projects this following year, and we'd like to sort of give you a teaser about them and give you some more information about how you could be involved. So please get that on your calendar, September 7th. I believe it is 9:30 to 10:30 in the morning, and we're looking forward to seeing you all there. So if you have any other questions, feel free to ask them, but if not, thanks to everybody and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
This has been a production of Cornell University, on the web at cornell.edu.